Welcome one and all to the Friday edition of the Damage Report. This week, I'm John Ederola. Brett Erlich, how is it going?
I've got a shtook, John.
You're gonna need to provide more information for me to know how to respond.
So if you are my grandma, I can't refer this to all people of Ashkenazi descent, but you're supposed to go like this. Actually, you're supposed to, I can't do it anymore because of the white power symbol. And you go like, I got a shtook, and then you show where it hurts. That's where I got a shtook. I got a little shtook right here. I don't like it, I hate it, but I'm gonna put up with it, John, because I care about the news. I care about you, I care about your team. I care about making this show all it can be.
Well, I believe in learning and integrating my learning into my life going forward. So let me point out that just a minute into the show with you, I have a shtook. Like right here, it's like a sharp shtook.
Like a shtook.
Right in my head. Anyway, thank you for being here. Brett Erlich is, of course, the host of the Happy Half Hour. Did you do a bracket this week?
Yeah, we did most universally likable people on the planet. And the winner was Betty White. She's no longer on the planet, but
that makes sense. Who were the final two? Well, Betty White.
Dolly Parton and Betty White. Final four. Jesus Christ, John.
Did Tom Hanks?
You really want to see? It's this. I can't bring it up. No,
I want to see enough to ask you these questions, not enough to.
Oh, it was Dolly Parton. It was a final five because in the Elite Eight, I believe it was
George Santos.
Yes, there was a final. Yeah, it was Ryan Reynolds and Danny DeVito tied, so they moved on. And Bob Ross, I want to say, or Mr. Rogers.
Although all of those make sense. People are saying Paul Rudd or Keanu Reeves. I like Ryan Reynolds, but is he universally liked, Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, I think
I like him.
I mean, I can bring it up for you, John, but I disappear for a second.
No, I think that we've probably turned off enough of our purely political viewers. So anyway, thank you everyone for being here. If you're out there and you are universally liked, we appreciate you watching our program. In any event, we have a lot of news that we're gonna be talking about through the course of today, not only giving you all the updates on the killing of Tyree Nichols, that tragedy. The video is apparently going to be coming out soon. We've also got a battle on the House floor over fossil fuels. I actually think that one's a lot of fun. What's going on with Kirsten Sinema's road towards re-election? And then in the aftermath, can you reduce your biological age? And if so, how? And if so, how much is it gonna cost? And of course, we will have our garbage people of the week. I've got a sort of modern classic for my garbage person of the week today. And I'm gonna see what happens with Brett. I don't know, I don't wanna know. I like to be surprised. So anyway, I'm really not gonna be paying attention. I'm gonna be going through my emails. They're piling up. Anyway, thank you for being here. Please hit the like button, share the stream if you haven't already. And if you want to reach out to us to send us any comments, tweets, or super chats, whether just to enlighten us, to ask us a question, or to perhaps win a Blue Apron gift card, you can do that and we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Brett Erlich, are you ready to start the show?
Let's do this, John.
Yes, let's do it. Bearing in mind that we're gonna be starting off with just about the most serious news of the day. Everyone brace yourself. Let's jump into this.
That was my baby. He was a mama's boy. That boy loved me to death. He has my name tattooed on his arm. I was in the room earlier and my stomach started hurting so bad. And I went into the den. I told my husband, my stomach is hurting so bad. And once I found out what happened, it was just the fact that I was feeling my son's pain. I was feeling my son's pain when they were beating him to death.
That is raw video of the mother of Tyree Nichols, who was not long ago killed by members of the Memphis Police Department following a traffic stop. And we're going to be breaking down all of this as we launch into a day in which the video is apparently at some point going to be released. But I just want to briefly say, like, there is no amount of effort that would be too much to put into trying to produce a future that stops those sorts of interviews from needing to be conducted. Like we've seen them before, and I'm so glad that the family members of the slain are willing to come forward and make it real for people, make it something that people will engage with and think about, and hopefully integrate into their politics going forward. But it's just devastating for them. And every time I see one, I think about, and this is dark, but the people who are watching it, who are going to someday participate in interviews like that, because this is the tragedy of today, but next week and next month and next year, there are going to be others. And it's a cycle that needs to end. Now, the case that we're talking about, as I said, did involve members of the Memphis Police Department, 5 of them. We're gonna put up the 5. They've been fired, now are being charged with 2nd-degree murder, booked into the Shelby County Jail. And we have a lot more video, including previews of what we expect is going to be shown on the video when it finally comes out. But if you are not familiar with this case, here are the details as we currently know them. And bear in mind, there is a lot that is not yet known about exactly what happened. We do know that back on January 7th, around 8:30 p.m., Memphis officers pulled over a vehicle for suspected reckless driving. Quote, a confrontation occurred, which is obviously vague, between officers and the vehicle's driver, which apparently was Tyre Nichols, who then fled on foot. Officers apprehended him, and then, quote, another confrontation occurred, resulting in his arrest. Now, of the things we don't know what about Tyre Nichols' driving had been considered to be reckless by the police officers, how far he fled, who was involved in the initial encounter, how he was apprehended, how long these confrontations lasted, why the officers felt they needed to chase down Nichols, and where exactly this happened. So basically, all of the details. We don't have basically anything. But 3 days after the stop, this is January 10th, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation announced that Nichols had died due to injuries sustained in the, quote, use of force incident with officers, extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating. There are a lot of terms and phrases in American politics that I hate. Use of force incident is just such a delightfully sanitized term for what this actually means. It means that he was beaten so terribly that within a couple of days, he died from the injuries he sustained from this police beating. Maybe he died 3 days later, which is terrible in its own way. Maybe he died a day later and they waited several days to actually say something about it. I don't know. There's a lot of different potential options. All of them are utterly terrible. Now, all 5 of the officers have been charged, but as we don't know almost anything about the actual incidents, we don't know to what extent the individual officers we showed you were involved. Were some involved more, some involved less? We have no idea at this point, although once the video comes out, some of that will become clear at that point. But we do know that Martin, Smith, Bean, Haley, and Mills have been charged with 2nd-degree murder, as I said, aggravated assault, 2 charges of aggravated kidnapping. That's interesting. 2 charges of official misconduct and 1 charge of official oppression. And in addition, and this is one of the most interesting details of this, 2 Memphis Fire Department employees who are part of Nichols' initial patient care were also fired. I don't know exactly what would justify that. I don't know that that will be on the video. I do know that there have been cases where people have been utterly brutalized by the police and could have been helped, could potentially have been saved, but the law enforcement just decided not to. Could that be a potential explanation? I literally have no idea. Brett, there's a lot here, obviously. What do you think?
So the timeline of events is something that needs to be hashed out, and hopefully it happens very soon. I don't understand why we don't know all those things. I don't understand how we don't know all those things. It is hopefully something that gets, ostensibly, since they do have video of the incident, ostensibly from body cam footage, all the body cam footage has been reviewed. And I've seen the police chief make statements to the news about her reaction to it and her feelings and interpretations of it.
We're gonna get to that in just a bit, yes.
Yeah, and I don't, and with that, there's all kinds of things that need to happen. First of all, it seems by all accounts that this event itself did not need to happen, but in the wake of it, we need assurances as a public. We need assurances that everybody affiliated with it understands how wrong it was. Some kind of connection emotionally and humanitarian wise, so that we all know that the police chief and the entire police department isn't just covering their ass, but actually understands the severity of it. And when I see those things about the fire department, it just, it just stinks of the LA Sheriff's Department, like a group of people acting together to say like, you can't even remotely disrespect the police or we will beat you to death. And that cancer seems to have spread to the fire department, where it's like, we will also let you die if someone beat you to death. Yep. And there was a potential for you to be saved. It's disgusting. And this is a moment where everybody involved who has ever said that they believe in reforming the police or doing any kind of changes to policing in America must show their integrity to stay consistent on that claim and back it up regardless of who the victim was, who the perpetrators were, and where it took place in America.
Yeah, and we should all stay focused on, obviously, like, I think there's a reason why generally in these sorts of things we focus on the attack that happened, but the willfully just stepping aside and letting a person die, I think we can all agree happens way too often in attacks like this, way too often in prisons and jails when someone is saying, I'm having an incident, I'm literally worried that I'm gonna die, and they just don't do anything and then the person dies. Until those things are treated like actual murders, we're not gonna, like, you are responsible for this person's life. Like, that is the job that you have signed up for. If you are free to just sit and watch as the person dies, then all too often that is clearly the choice that is made in a variety of different areas. Now, I do want to turn to one of the areas that Brett was talking about there. The police chief, now involved overseeing the aftermath of the death of Tyree Nichols, has described what we can expect later on today. I believe in like 6 hours or so, the footage should be revealed. Here's a little bit of that discussion.
It was unconscionable, and I felt that I needed to do something and do something quickly. I don't think I've witnessed anything of that nature in my entire career.
Really?
Really.
That bad?
It was that bad.
What are we going to see then?
You're going to see acts that defy humanity. You're going to see a disregard for life, duty of care that we're all sworn to, and a level of physical interaction that is above and beyond what is required in law enforcement. Individuals watching will feel what the family felt. And if you don't, then you're not a human being.
So we don't often hear the police talk about these incidents in this way. They generally will talk in a much more defensive, vague, we'll find out, whatever manner. That seemed honest and legit and straightforward. But also, obviously we've experienced a lot of these sorts of incidents. So when I hear that the acts that we're gonna see in this video defy humanity, I mean, look, I personally believe that about virtually every one of these videos that we see. Just a couple days ago, we showed absolutely vicious assault by police. I would say that defies humanity. Is that police chief saying that these defy humanity in comparison to normal videos? What exactly are we going to see on this? Like, I can't tell if this is a cop finally seeing this the way that we all are, or if this is that outstanding in comparison to the brutality that we see on a daily basis. And now I'm just very worried. Brett, what do you make of what you saw in that video?
The other question is, has the activism of the general population of the reform movement in America scared police officers and police departments into actually being a little bit or a lot more transparent? Because, I mean, look at the timeline of this versus George Floyd. George Floyd happened like on one, say it was, I forget what day of the week it was, but on Monday it happened. On Tuesday it was a trending topic in America, and within a few, like there was an investigation immediately, charges brought within days, because it was a bystander who caught the incident.
Yeah.
This is it's a few weeks in this situation. And then you have to check the timeline for most of these events these days, because you'll find out about incidents of police brutality that took place months, if not years ago, that only because of initiatives to make body cam footage more accessible to the general population and people like TYT and auditors of police body cam footage in general who want to get the word out, they go and they find this footage. And it's gonna look horrible to the chief of police of Memphis that this happened at all, and anyone's gonna see that footage. And the reason we see it this fast is because of how much more horrible it would look to them. It would look if they sat on it for longer.
Yeah, CJ Davis, the police chief that we saw right there, says that it's about the same, if not worse, than the video of Rodney King being beaten.
Yeah, so it sounds like they just stood around him and just beat him to death after it was very clear
similar to the
anything.
Exactly, and then probably just watched him succumb to his injury. That's what it feels like to me. This is just speculation. This is just. And people are going to be rightly infuriated by that this keeps happening over and over. Every one of those cops that participated in this is not 6 months old. Every one of those cops has been around, many of them as cops, for literally dozens or hundreds of these sorts of incidents. They've seen it happen. They've seen the national discussion about it. They've seen social protests about it. They've seen discussions about legislation about it. I'm sure they've had talks amongst themselves and with other cops about it. And then they were put in a situation where they could make one of several different types of choices, and they chose to utterly brutalize someone, to beat the life out of someone. The fact that there are still so many cops around this country just waiting for their opportunity to be the person that we have to discuss it's appalling. It's utterly depressing that so many of these instances, like us being forced to reckon with it, to hear the details, to see the raw testimony of the families, to see the video itself, to watch people have the life beaten out of them. And it just doesn't sway millions and millions of Americans who believe that the cops have literally never done anything wrong, and many, many cops that don't think that this is a problem, that either individually or at least once they get into a group are going to actively participate in an incident like this. That you have a group of 5 cops. And we'll see, maybe on the video there's one that was saying, hey guys, I think we got him, we can stop. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like, we know how bad cops can be individually, and we know how much worse they can be when they feel like they need to go along with what cops do. We'll see. I wanna play one more video. We'll give you our quick response, and then we'll see what happens later on today when the video comes out. But let's get into this next video.
People don't know what those 5 police officers did to our family. And they really don't know what they did to their own families. They have put their own families in harm's way. They have brought shame to their own families. They brought shame to the Black community.
Yeah, you should definitely look up and watch the full interview, and I'm sure that they'll be doing more appearances in the aftermath of the video coming out later on today. The city of Memphis is expecting that there is going to be public outrage. I think that that's a reasonable expectation. I think that being outraged is very, very reasonable. The mother of Tyre Nichols, you saw in the video, is saying, I don't want us burning up our city. I know that I saw something about like a state of emergency, 1,000 police being called up, something like that. I don't know exactly what the scale of the preparations are, but we're gonna see what ends up happening, obviously. We know that we've been through a lot of these sorts of protests from people who just don't want this to happen anymore. And I really wish that that was something that we could all agree on. I think that it should be. I think it's the most reasonable thing in the world. But unfortunately, just snatching the lives away from more and more people on a daily basis is not something that we can reach unanimity on. Brett, what are your final thoughts?
I think the 1,000 National Guard troops is in Atlanta.
Apologies.
But it is, and that was a protester who was killed.
That's outside.
But it was
yes, I remember the story now. It's outside of the
but it was in this general idea of policing in America and protesting its corruption, and it is in everyone across the nation. Every police department is, as these reports say, on high alert that people might be upset that this happened again. Mm-hmm. And I agree that people will be upset that this happened again. And by all accounts of those who have watched the footage, it should be. And I think there's gonna be, I don't know who I am to talk about this, but I think there's gonna be a lot of people on right-wing media who are like, but they were black cops. So the answer is, so if there is integrity in the movement to reform police, regardless of who the police were in this incident, this is an opportunity to reform police.
Yeah.
And everybody's still speaking in one voice, saying that this kind of behavior shouldn't happen. And so it's, opportunity is a bad word, but it is a kairos, the right time for us to all say, yes, I see everything you see. And after watching the footage I watched and countless other examples of footage like this, we need to take action to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna be seeing later on today. We're gonna see what it reveals. We're gonna see what the local response is. We're gonna see what the federal response is in terms of reforms. I have predictions about that based on experience. But in any event, we are gonna go to our first break. When we come back, a fight on the House floor about fossil fuels, some regulations to what Joe Biden might be able to do in an emergency. We'll have that for you and more after this. I want to read just one more super chat from Grandma Sunshine Dragon. It says, John's Schtook is named Brett. Love you, Dragon. He's a pain in my Schtook, actually. Anyway, lots more comments we're gonna get to in our next break. First though, we need to talk about fossil fuels. We're jumping into this.
I understand in this body, it's not the first time that it seems as though the opposing side can't seem to be able to debate the issue. And so they must come after my character.
Why is the right wing once again attacking AOC? Well, this time it's over fossil fuels. Here's a little bit of Representative Jeff Duncan attacking her for her stance on the issue.
Go and learn for yourself about this. Educate yourself on how America attained its low emissions. You care about the air quality, you care about climate change. Natural gas is what got America there. Educate yourself on that. Then we can have a better debate about future resources, future energy production.
Yes, the disagreement between Jeff Duncan and AOC is probably entirely based on her not knowing anything about natural gas or whatever. By the way, can we stop saying that? It's IHOB, it's marketing, it's gas. That's what it is. I guess it's natural in that it exists out there in the world. Lots of things do. Is natural gas any more natural than them?
Right.
In any
Most
event,
natural gas is nitrogen.
Yeah, well, I think, and a lot of methane. No, it's, I forget who it was, but someone said it's fossil gas. That's what it is. It's a fossil fuel in a gas form. It's fossil gas. That's what it is. Stop saying centrist, stop saying moderate, stop saying natural gas. We've got more words. We're gonna ban them until we're Florida. Anyway, AOC had a full response to this attack. Here's her substantive point.
While I cannot control the fact that the other side seems to have made the assumption that I am uneducated, one of the things that I can say, or what they may say about my worldview, one of the things that I can say is that while I may not work for Wall Street, that is true. I may not be here with the mission to increase profits for corporations. That is true. My mission here is for the well-being and dignity of our family and our planet's future, for our children's ability to live on this planet. That is what this amendment is about. Moreover, when we talk about education, we should all take it upon ourselves in this body to educate ourselves on the science of the challenge of climate change that is before us. By around 2050, we are looking at the western states to be projected to further increase, wildfires to further increase 2 to 6 times. And that is just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it is. I mean, all of these things are going to get worse and worse and worse, and we're going to have to deal with it. Our kids are going to have to deal with it. Our grandkids, assuming those exist, are going to have to deal with it. And Representative Jeff Duncan needs to deal with the call that he's going to have with ExxonMobil later on this week. That's why he's concerned about this. So what are they all fighting about? Well, AOC has an idea. She says, in case you're wondering why this man is so angry with me, it may be because I introduced an amendment to a GOP bill that would prohibit oil and gas companies who engage in stock buybacks from leasing federal lands. Seems as though I hit a nerve. That was her amendment. The discussion was about a bunch of different things. Marjorie Greene had her own little amendment that got like 95% of the Republicans voted against. That's hilarious. So basically what was going on though is legislation that would limit President Joe Biden's authority to withdraw oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve after Republicans claimed he misused the power for political gains. You can see online, Marjorie Greene has a big thing about how unfair it was that he did this in her words, to lower the cost of gasoline. She admits that he had that as his intent and it was the effect, and says that that's awful, that he shouldn't have done that. Remember, they were complaining on a daily basis, as everyone was, that gasoline was too expensive, and they were enraged that he did something that immediately, if only by a small amount, lowered the cost of gasoline. And they said he shouldn't do that because what if we need that for something else? Well, it's months and months later. It doesn't seem to have had any negative effect that they're identifying that I can come up with. It seems like it was fine. They think though it should be banned because he did it before an election. And presumably Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis wouldn't have done that. I don't know. Anyway, what the change that they want to make, Brett, by the way, is you can't withdraw oil from the reserves unless there's an increase in the percentage of federal lands that produce oil and gas that match the percentage withdrawn. So if you take 10% of the reserve, you need to give 10% more over and above the current federal lands that are being given over to fossil fuel companies for further exploration, despite the fact, as AOC points out in her extended remarks, there are literally thousands of leases that haven't yet been acted on that have already been given to fossil fuel companies. So again, this is just a massive give. It's an attack on Biden combined with a massive giveaway to fossil fuel companies. What do you think?
Right, it just doesn't make sense. The math doesn't make sense because increasing lands on which you can drill is kind of creating this like a generator of fossil fuels, right? And depleting, and the current amount of lands that we have obviously has led to a surplus in gas in fossil fuels set aside. So the current amount of land we have generates a strategic reserve. Adding more land to that will generate just more gas that could potentially increase the overall reserve, but it would do so more and more over time if we kept the same proportion set away every day. That doesn't make sense. And yeah, the guy's saying that natural gas is why we have lower emissions and why the skies are clearer than they were in the 70s. The answer to that's the catalytic converter, you dumb. And people like AOC and conservationists like Richard Nixon, who created the Environmental Protection Agency to keep kids from getting poisoned by the sky.
Yeah,
like you guys have gone so far right and so far up your own ding dongs about this that you're further right than Richard Milhouse Nixon, you weirdos.
Plus, like saying like we don't need to do anything on emissions. Look at our emissions already; they're so low. Is like the fossil fuel policy related version of like when Mitch McConnell will say, "They say that America is a racist nation, but we elected the first black president." First of all, who the hell is we in that sentence? What you weren't a part of that. Jeff Duncan and the Jeff Duncans of past generations would have and did argue against literally every regulation to lower emissions that we've ever had. They don't want there to be an EPA. They wouldn't want there to be catalytic converters. They have no problem with lead in gasoline. These were all things that activists and forward-thinking politicians got done against massive opposition over years and years and years. They hated all of these things. They had the same position then as they do now. Regulations are bad because they cost businesses money. So don't pretend that the success of environmental activists over the last half century is justification for not doing more now. We still have a massive problem facing us.
Right.
But in any event,
yeah, go ahead.
Super. Okay, on the leasing topic, because they are still pushing for more leasing. And by the way, Joe Biden is giving away tons of leases. I believe over the first 2 years of his presidency, he gave away more leases. Again, that's not necessarily the best way to measure it, but more raw leases than Trump did in the first 2 years of his first term, only term. In any event, here is AOC talking about what more leasing would and wouldn't do.
We know that leasing more land to fossil fuel companies does not guarantee that gas prices will drop. As we've seen this past year, even when these companies have record profits, they do not pass along those savings to their consumers, to customers. What leasing more land does do, however, is guarantee that we will accelerate the devastating impacts of climate change and see more deadly and destructive weather events.
AOC is 100% right. We have been trying to make this case at every point along the way on this. When they were jacking up the prices, we were saying that they were jacking up the prices. They were optionally, totally willingly jacking up the prices. There were some Democrats calling for something to be done about that. Every single one of these Republicans was against stopping them from artificially jacking up the prices. We said that they were just doing that to increase their profits. It was not to offset additional costs or supply chain, whatever, or anything like that. And now they're having this argument after Chevron announced this week that their profits for 2022 doubled to more than $37 billion, and they're gonna be buying back $75 billion worth of their own shares. We're still having the same argument. Like, we already knew that they were jacking up the prices just to artificially increase their profits. They didn't increase their revenue and their costs, they increased their profits. That's just money they took from people buying gasoline here and people around the globe, honestly. Like, giving them access to more oil does not reduce the price. There are ways that you can do that, but they're not interested in any of those. Final thoughts, Brett.
Right, it is not the amount of money going to fossil fuels that's the problem. They get tons and tons of money, and they're pretending that it's hard for them right now. It's not hard for them. It's hard for the American people who who are trying to find jobs and high-paying jobs in a world where this happens not just in the fossil fuel industry. In a world where giant corporations have plenty of money coming in. How do I know? They tell us on their quarterly earnings statements.
Yep.
They brag about it. There's shareholders who sit on their ass and are like, all right, here's $90. I'm just gonna, it's my funny money, my $10,000, my Pelosi $2 million I'm putting in Google. Those people who just sit on their buns because they got a bunch of cash to pad their cushions, those folks are making more money, not the people going to work every day.
Yeah.
And that's what AOC is advocating for. She's not even saying you can't do it. She's like, you can't do it if you're just gonna take the extra money from this and give it to people who already have too much. And that's something that everybody should be able to get behind, is what AOC is saying. And most people do if you poll them. The question she's asking is, should extra favors be given to destroyers of the planet so they can get richer, or not? The answer is no extra favors, you doinks, until we mandate that. And when they take actions to make it so that people's lives are easier, like going through the strategic petroleum reserves, we get pushback on it. Sorry, we brought the price of gas down. My bad.
That is so annoying, so impolite of Joe Biden. In any event, speaking of Joe Biden, why don't we move on to our B block? That's what was going on. This is what I guess potentially could be going on in the House very soon. Whenever you're ready, let's jump into this.
And now these MAGA Republicans have introduced another bill. It's going to eliminate the IRS, going to eliminate it completely. The only guys who can go in and look at the complicated tax returns that people have, and replace the IRS, which would be nice, no taxes, right? Except with a 30% national sales tax and everything from if you buy a home to a car to eggs.
That is Joe Biden speaking about the proposed national flat fair sales whatever tax of the GOP. He does want to reassure you that as terrible as this sounds, he's going to make sure that it doesn't happen, and he's going to do a little bit of somewhat weird whispering during it. But here's his remarks.
I thought I heard today, Don, that the Speaker of the House says he's not sure he's for it now. Bless me, Father, for he has sinned. I tell you, Do they think this is going to help with inflation? In the process, cutting taxes on the wealthiest? You got to be kidding me. What in God's name is this all about? Look, that's how they're starting this new term. Cutting taxes on billionaires, raising taxes on middle-class families, and making inflation worse, for real. And let me be clear. If any of these bills somehow got past the House and the Senate, I will veto them.
He loves doing his little whisper. Brett, you seem to enjoy that.
How does Joe Biden, Stammering Joe, have such facility in talking about this issue? Because it's so easy. In Economics 1, when they're explaining what a regressive tax is, they say the sales tax. What do I mean? All right, so if you make $1 billion and there's a 33% tax on you having that income, then and a 22% tax on people with lower incomes, that's not a regressive tax. That's like the richer people pay more and the poorer people pay less of a percentage. Sales tax is the opposite. And the easiest way to look at it is this. If I spend $10 on a pack of cigarettes, right? And there is a 30% sales tax on that, I'm paying a 30, it's $3 for me. And if I make a little bit of money, if I make $3,000 a year, that's like whatever, 0.1% of my total income. If I make $3 billion a year, that's 0.0000001% of my income. So it is a smaller percentage of your income typically to have a sales tax if you are a super rich person than if you're a poor one.
Yeah.
It is so stupid. It's so easy. And it is only people, the rich folks could buy, it's easier for them to go out to a $100 dinner than it is for a poor person to go out to a $100 dinner because it's less of their income they're spending. So it's a regressive tax. It's a smaller percentage tax on them. Unless you're buying 300% more stuff, it never nets out.
How many yachts can you get, I suppose? Yes. So look, that is about as regressive as a tax can be. But as we're responding to what they're proposing, let's also bear in mind that we have the current tax setup, which is already wildly regressive in a number of different ways. The payroll tax cap, the fact that capital gains is taxed at a much lower rate than actual income. There's already a variety of ways that the rich are getting away with tax murder. This is just them saying like, I guess we'll just go for everything. I guess we'll just get rid of all of those taxes. Oh, and also at the same time, get rid of the IRS, which even if you did think that there was a legitimate reason to switch over to a flat sales tax, why do you have to get rid of the IRS at that point? They're not even satisfied in getting rid of their income taxes and all of that, and then only paying a very, very small amount of tax on the direct things that they purchase. They also are preparing preemptively to cheat on that. And they don't want anyone auditing the cheating they'll do on the taxes they'll evade on their yachts and their mansions and their Maseratis and all of that, to reference yesterday's show. Anyway, really fast, the details. It is the Fair Tax Act. Representative Earl Buddy Carter. By the way, Washington Post, just because a person says that their nickname is Buddy doesn't mean that you have to write it.
Oh, easy now. I got an Uncle Buddy. It means he's the third.
Does it?
Yeah, it was Grover the first, Grover Jr., Sonny, and then Grover the third, Buddy.
I thought you meant it's like a standard thing where it's a third. Why does he get to be Buddy? Why? Okay, I'm John.
It's like Skip. If your dad, if your great grandfather was John and your son is John, but you're not John, you're Skip because the name's skipped a generation.
Okay, well, this is not a tradition.
John, if you want to talk about super awesome white Anglo-Saxon Protestant shorthand names, I got a whole half of my family that knows about it.
I'm going to add a 30% tax on all of your non sequiturs. Anyway, so it would get rid of income, payroll, estate, and gift taxes as well. Oh, weird that they put the estate thing in there. That's a coincidence. And then imposes national sales tax. I don't know why the Washington Post is calling it a 23% national sales tax. Literally everyone else is saying that it's 30%. I don't know. Anyway, it would also eliminate the IRS because again, this is about getting literally everything at once, not just getting rid of income taxes, but also the estate, also getting rid of the IRS. Why not? But we're the radicals. We're extreme. Carter told Fox Business that people would, quote, much rather have a consumption tax when given a choice. Don't tell Fox Business that, tell the people that, because when they get polled, no, they don't want the flat tax. YouGov had a poll, they're against it. There are Republicans sometimes will, like the plurality will support it, but it doesn't even have majority support amongst Republicans. And even people like Grover Norquist, who like his entire life is trying to get rid of taxes, doesn't think that this is a good idea. He calls it a free gift to Democrats. He also doesn't like, he says effectively it would be like setting up a basic income, because there's this thing where they would give you a little bit of money every month for the essentials to defray some of the cost, which I'm actually shocked that they're doing that. That makes it slightly less regressive, but that doesn't make up for the fact that already when you're living under the poverty line, you get tax benefits for being that poor. This wouldn't even make up for the loss of those tax benefits. So the entire thing is a massive con. Super fast, Brett.
The easiest way to look at it is this: people with super low incomes don't pay income tax. They only pay sales tax. Right now, sales tax is like 9.5% to 8%, depending on where you live. Yes. If they get rid of the income tax, which poor people don't pay anyway, and increase the sales tax, they're essentially tripling taxes on the poor.
Yes, and they know that. Exactly. Okay, but those poor are just getting away with murder under the current system with their inability to survive, let alone save. Anyway, thank you, Dark Brandon, for fighting against that. When we come back, we're gonna be talking about George Santos. Is his most recent revelation enough to maybe break through? We're gonna roll the dice on it after this. I don't know what would have to come out for it to move the needle on George Santos and get him kicked out of Congress. Here's something. You figure out if you think this is enough. People used to communicate with him on Facebook before he deleted his personal Facebook account, shared some of the past messages he had sent to them. And here's one. Hi, Hitler. LOL, somebody kill her. The Jews and black mostly won. Lol, dumb. With the joke being that he's a Nazi and he wants Jewish people and black people to be killed. But according to his friends on Facebook at the time, he always said it was okay for him to make those jokes because he was Jewish, which he isn't. It wouldn't be okay anyway, from my point of view. I know it's not up to me, but he very much is not Jewish. There's other comments, by the way, from his Facebook where people pointed out that what he was saying was terrible. And he would say, how dare you say this to the grandson of people who survived the Holocaust? So he's apparently been lying about that one for years and years at this point. But Brett, joking about killing Jewish and black people, will that make a difference?
No.
Damn it.
And what's with height?
Well, not.
I don't understand height, Hitler. Isn't it Heil?
He's an idiot.
He's so stupid. Like what? This guy not being funny is not his problem.
Yeah, I agree. It's not his biggest problem, I suppose.
I think we need, no, I'm starting the hashtag believe George. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Guy seems to be real cool.
He's just.
It's so sad. It's so sad that in a world that had like Donald Trump, who the Washington Post wrote like, here are the 30,000 times he lied. At least he occasionally said something that wasn't horse hockey once a week and was genuinely entertaining. This guy is not only like even more pathologically a liar, but he isn't even funny. And the worst part is he looks like my friend Frank, who's also from Brazil. And it creeps me out.
I feel bad for your friend Frank. Someone in the chat pointed out he's making $14,500 a month. Why would he leave? That's not a bad point. I mean, granted, he shouldn't care about that since he's got millions of dollars in real estate and stuff, and all of those endorsements from his volleyball career. I don't know, it's weird. He's almost acting like a person who doesn't have any other money. But that's who he is. He's joking about killing Jewish people. He's not Jewish. but this is America. So anyway, by the way, in the chat, Brooke Mark says, "Isn't even funny is the harshest criticism I can give to somebody."
It's so true.
Funny. I've noticed that. Okay. Anyway, no, we don't think that this is going to matter. Maybe one reporter will try to ask him a question about it, and he's not even going to answer because that's what he does.
Where did the 700,000 come from?
On a Brazilian podcast, you said you donate your salary. Do you still plan to do that?
When will you address all these allegations against you? You said soon. It's been a month since you've been here. When will you address them?
I'll talk to the media soon.
When is soon?
When is here?
Soon.
Couple weeks? This week?
And could you explain why you're not attending tonight at the White House?
I'm not attending?
Why?
Oh, I just didn't have the time. It was not on my schedule. Sorry.
You don't have the time?
I do not. I have,
What are you doing instead?
Constituent services.
I don't know what George Santos is doing tonight, but I know it is not constituent services. We did a story a couple of weeks ago. He didn't even have an office. He was already in Congress. He hadn't set up an office yet. So he's like, they're doing their job. I'm glad. They're doing basically what I asked for a couple of weeks ago. They are not allowing him to be normalized. They're asking him important follow-up questions, and I'm gonna give them bonus style points for doing it in a really condescending manner, and that is just delicious. I don't know who that woman was that was asking those questions, but she's the best.
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah,
she looks like actress Saoirse Ronan.
She's love like, that.
So, what are you up to later, buddy? Because I have to write one of your lies a day, and I'd rather get it just from you.
But the thing about that, look, so he's not answering questions about the $700,000 loan, which, look, him joking on Facebook about murdering Jewish people in America, I guess, isn't a big deal. The $700,000 thing could potentially. He denied that it had anything to do with the fact that he revised his filings to say that it wasn't personal. It was just handled by his fiduciaries, but nobody knows who's in charge of handling his finances. The new treasurer that was named in the revised filings denies accepting the job offer, and it appears at this point that George Santos might have forged his signature on the paperwork. I don't know for sure if that is true, but I 100% believe that that is true. And that is a crime. You can't do that. So Brett, will this matter?
It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Like most people, when they're standing outside the elevator trying to get it to arrive on time, as in the video we watched earlier, they're hoping it gets there faster. But there's a little bit of his mind subconsciously that wishes that the doors open and the elevator won't be there, so you can just walk into the empty shaft and end it. Get me away.
That would have been a great end to this entire thing. He might just disappear at some point.
Just get out.
It is entirely possible.
Like he needs to find the service elevators at this point.
Exactly. I don't know who that reporter is. If someone knows, can you send the name? Because I want to have them on the show. And I just want to talk to them about what they plan to do going forward to provide some accountability to George Santos. But anyway, again, like it's a mix of petty lies, very significant and horrendous lies that should go beyond any line, even in America in 2023, as well as some serious concerns about financial crimes here in the United States, as well as the petty fraud crimes that he apparently committed in Brazil before he fled the continent. Anyway,
he should start just talking like Anna Delvey. When he gets questions like that, he's like, "You guys are so basic. I'm starting a social club. Would you like to join it?" You're like,
she has a reality show coming out, by the way. I don't know if you saw that.
She does. It's basically her idea, the show.
I think he should go in the direction of the dropout, and he should just address all of those reporters with a paper mask of his own face over his face, and then dance awkwardly onto the elevator and out of our lives. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have in this hour of the show. Thank you to everyone watching on the linear platforms or listening to the podcast. We appreciate you supporting us and what we're trying to do, which is survive from day to day. For those of you sticking around for the full show, in the aftermath, we will be talking about how you can extend your life. I don't know why you would want to at this point, but if you do, we'll have some tips. and the Garbage People of the Week coming up after this.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.